Okay, so a little backstory about why I took it a little personally for Peterson to go off the res was I was repped at CAA, which is the biggest agency in the world. They rep everyone from Steven Spielberg to Hillary Clinton to the once great rapist Harvey Weinstein. And they started the Me Too movement in one of their offices. And when you go in there, I was there from the time I was a busboy until I got kicked out. It's this opulent, just giant white marble, just enticing display of power and wealth, like right in the heart of Beverly Hills. And it was good for me because when you're a busboy and you're trying to be a comedian, like no one was getting signed at CAA when you're bussing tables. I was working at a Japanese restaurant, cleaning fish off a table from drunk people, and my agent was walking by to go into the Oscars because it was in the same mall area. And I remember he almost didn't even want to say hi to me because he realized that he was repping someone who was getting an Academy Award and a guy who was covered in fish guts. And I'm like, yo! And he's like, hey, because I had jumped that many levels that fast for some reason. And so I'm at CAA and I start realizing that it's a pretty, once I had a child and once I left LA, I started realizing that it was becoming this political apparatus, or maybe I just saw it. And I listened to this wacky Canadian named Jordan Peterson before anyone really knew who he was. And he was standing up against compelled speech. And he inspired me. He really did. Truly, deep down, he inspired me. And I said, I will stand up against something that I consider evil no matter what consequence it happens to me. And there was this one guy, Jesse Thorne, who's this NPR douche. And he had a 5-year-old boy that he was saying was a girl that was trans. And no one was saying anything to him. Even friends of mine, blue checkmark people that I knew were cool, were just not saying anything. And I'm like, this is child abuse. So I called him out by name on Twitter. Got the whole hellstorm came, and Peterson's bravery helped me keep my core and find that truth. And so CAA kicked me out. They said, I even have the email still if we ever want to go down that thing, where they said, you can't talk this way. You either have to apologize or we can't represent you anymore. And I think they really thought that I would just desperately clamor to apologize. But I said, okay, fine. And so they dropped me. And I was scared because I had a baby. And all my touring dates just all got canceled. I had no income, so I started doing tree work for my brother. It was like treehab. And so I reconnected to a really good life. And I was very happy, and I was very happy he inspired me to do that. So when Jordan Peterson signed with CAA, I knew something was wrong with the guy. But I just, that's weird he did that. And I'll tell you why it's extra weird, because he didn't need to. He already had a giant fan base. 12 Rules for Life was crushing. And then he signs with CAA. The only explanation for signing with an agency is if they help you get stuff, help you get gigs because no one knows who you are. So that was odd. And then, so this is the agency that kicked me out for speaking truth to power. Jordan Peterson signs with them. Then my sweet, sweet prince, not Lindsey Golden Graham. He's one of my new sweet boys. He's such a legend. I'll get to him in a second. But Coddington Bear, the dude who directed my newest special, Persona Non Grata, available at hugepianist.com. Pick it up for $10. Jordan Peterson tickets are like $260 to meet the guy. And some people, when I called that out as being ridiculous, because my sweet, sweet boy paid for that, Coddington Bear, and I didn't want to break his heart that was ridiculous. Because, I know that feeling when you feel like someone's tuned in to something you've been dying to hear for a long time, and you will just do anything to hear him talk. Peterson used that, and he manipulated people, because Peterson's audience is, a lot of them are young dudes trying to do what's right. And a lot of my audience is young dudes trying to do what's right, okay? Because some people would say, well, that's the free market at work, Big Bear. Aren't you pro-free market? Yeah, I'm also anti-scumbag. There are people that would pay $1,000 to hear me talk. I know for a fact. I don't want to ask them for that because that's insane and that's manipulating. I charge $20 for a ticket every time, no matter what. Why? Because I know my demographic in general. A lot of them are young dudes who want to be married and have a kid, and they want their wife to be able to raise their kid, and they want to have a starter home. And right now it's almost impossible to buy a starter home because all this foreign money and shit is coming in, and there's probably another bubble on the way. And, our economy, thanks to feminism, is now set up where the woman has to clock in at a damn salt mine in order to pay the bills. So I need to make money. I need to get what's due for the bear. But at the same time, I would never exploit people like that. Like Cotton Bear is a mathematician with a wife. He wants a child. He lives in Florida. Yikes. And he would pay whatever to see Peterson because he's such a good dude and he wants to do what's right. And he wants to hear. So when I hear this stuff, I'm like, why are you making those guys give you all their money? Why are you wearing fancy suits? Like, why are you making $500,000 a month now on Patreon? And, because when you're supporting someone like him or someone like me, one of the things is speak for the people that aren't being heard, that are the majority of the country, that aren't these power-hungry master people in these weird little pockets in the country. I know exactly why you people support me. It's not because it's a cult. It's not because I'm special. It's because I'm saying things that power structures won't allow said. And you're supporting it because you have a long time frame in your mind, and you know that a short-term amount of money that you don't see as very much will have a long-term impact on fighting the culture war. I get it. So when a guy like Peterson, in the most crucial time, says that Judge Kavanaugh should step down and apologize to an angry mob, that's betrayal. And it's not just him getting something wrong. I'll tell you something I just got wrong last night. I posted this post and some guy commented like, are these posts 2 minutes apart? But it had to do with the post I did, not me posting. And I was like, yeah, I treat Instagram like Twitter. Read my bio, dick. And then I just passed out. And so my wife actually apologized to the guy. She was like, Owen just passed out. I don't think he understood that you were talking about his post. Haha. And the guy was cool. But like, that's something that you should forgive me for, because you can tell my intentions are okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Jordan Peterson signed with the devil. Okay, all good. Because I'm not into character assassinations when I think they're doing a net good for young men. I haven't liked Peterson for a bit now because I think he exploits people. That being said, he has a message that's very true and very needed to hear. Do not apologize to an angry mob and stand up for what you know to be true. It's the whole point. And that your uncomfort does not take away my right to speak, to exist, to thrive. That's his point. That's what makes Jordan Peterson valuable. And in the most crucial time for that, in American history potentially, when Judge Kavanaugh is being show trialed, Jordan Peterson says he should step down even if he gets nominated. That was the straw that broke a camel's back that was very, very heavy. And since then, he's just been backpedaling, and you can tell that he realizes he's scared he's going to lose his audience, which is his money, but he also wants to please his new masters. And his new masters need him to not say what's true. But the only reason he has a voice is because of people like us. So now he's saying, well, it's complicated. It's, I think a healing and then he'll be vindicated. He knows that's all not true. The only way I would have forgiven what he said is if he said, I'm sorry. What I said was wrong. He should not step down. I would have forgiven that. But this backpedal, vague nonsense, once you see someone for the fraud con artists that they are, it's all bullshit. And, him saying that the extreme right are Nazis. I mean, he's done all kinds of shit. And then he signs with CIA. Before you know it, he's only eating meat and wearing $2,000 vested suits and just saying nonsense. Do you believe in God? Depends what you mean by God. No, that means you don't. You're an atheist liberal from Canada who's trying to profit on the lack of masculinity in America. And fuck off. And I'm telling you why I'm saying fuck off, because one of the only forces that works is social shame. I do not want him censored. I do not want him kicked off social media. If someone wants to see him live, I want the free market to work just like everything else. I am not eating my own. I am not calling for the demolition of a man. This dude has more power now than you can imagine, right? All I'm saying is there should be a social repercussion for betraying your people. And want to know why he has so many good men looking at him for truth? Is because we live in a masculinity vacuum, right? There's so little masculinity in our once great culture of America that a guy saying clean your room is seen as a revolutionary statement. Dudes are supposed to say clean your damn room. That's what everyone's supposed to say to their kids. I also have looked at Peterson as a quasi-father figure. I did the same with Rogan. I totally understand what it feels like to feel like someone's attacking your father. He's not your father. He's not my father. That was one of the benefits of reconnecting with Christianity for me. This material world, these false idols, will only lead to nonsense. That's not your father. You know, you don't take marching orders from Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson said truth in a time of lies. Jordan Peterson is not truth in a time of lies. You understand? It's you can't go back and forth. And the only reason I'm addressing it is because I lost Patreons. It was one of the first times in a while that my Instagram numbers started going down. People wrote me crazy emails. People said that I was a betrayer. People said that they'll never listen to me again. His cult followers are and I feel for you guys because I know what that feels like. You think I'm attacking your father. I'm not. I'm doing something that needs to be done, and if you need to bail, bail. But if what Jordan Peterson said, I'm actually doing, and I'm fallible as well. Do not follow me as some sort of truth embodiment, because I'm not. I'm a human with breath who gets things wrong all the time, but I will not lie to you. And if I ever do, bail on me. Show others what happens. Shame me, you know? But that's my only point. And it's like, this has been a long time coming, guys. The guy, he's just not a good role model. And I feel like I really have to hammer this home. I still bring up David Hogg. I don't let people forget this stuff, because the way totalitarian, authoritarian types operate is they keep you out of context. It's the way public schools will teach your children. They just make you, you know, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. The Pilgrims came in 1630. John Smith was this guy. This guy, they don't teach you how to process information or have context or have the skill to problem solve. They just keep you disoriented. It's how bears fish. Just mud in the water. Just keep everyone chaotic, right? So David Hogg becomes an embarrassment, right? They try to use this guy to limit your Second Amendment rights. You need your Second Amendment rights. You like, I won't let people forget that. And it's the same with Peterson. I'll do a post. There's backlash. Okay, here's another one. I'll do it now once a week, indefinitely. I'm not going to be a digital clock. I'm going to be a clock with hands. So you're going to know where the time came from and where it's going, because that's very manipulative. And for all the people that are still in this weird cult of this guy, it's great that you want to be good. And that's awesome. And that's one reason why I'm trying to snap you out of this nonsense, because I too was there. I got my brother to read 12 Rules of Life, and we got in an argument because my brother, being very, very, very smart and literate, told me it was written poorly. And I said, don't say that about JP. And we got in an argument, and he just dropped it and never brought it up again. And looking back, he was right. He was like, dude, this is rambling. This is vague. These sentence structures are, he's like, what? He's like, brother, this, you know, this isn't good writing. So just bail on that guy, because it's real dark stuff. And we're in a culture war. And I try, if I see that someone brings something really good to my culture and my country and my family, I let a lot go if I can isolate like a message that's really good and be like, I don't want young men to not be able to get this message. Like, for example, Ben Shapiro has said some stuff that's made my skin crawl. You know, there's things about him that I find suspicious. Overall, he's a great resource for young men. And I'm not going to character assassinate the guy or come at him hard for his views on James Gunn that were horrible, or his views on Roseanne that were ridiculously stupid, or his tendency to want to go to war when it's bullshit because he's too cool with war and he's too... There's things about him that drive me crazy, right? In general, he has a great message for young people, and I'm glad that people listen to him because he explained negative rights versus positive rights in a recent thing that I was listening to that was brilliant. You know, you have negative rights, God-given, Constitution-given rights. You have the right to not have someone do something. You don't have positive rights. Like, you don't have a right to health care because that means someone else has the right to force someone to give you a product. That's tyranny, disguised as freedom. You don't have a right to education. You don't. You have the right to educate yourself. You have rights of what people can't do to you. Like, you have a right, you have property rights. So people can't go on your property. And if they do, you have a right to defend yourself. You don't have a right for the government to provide you with security guards. You don't have the right, because once you do that, the government owns you like cattle, and then you have no rights. Like public schools, that like giving up, saying that that's a right is a trick. It's wizardry. It's saying that, like, okay, you have a right to education. The person providing that education has already committed a ridiculous power grab act. They've taken money through force from people, and they've set up an institution that forces lessons on children. That's already intense. So that person should not be trusted with the mind of your child. You know, they're not going to just teach them anything true. You know, like, for example, when I was a kid, I had a great education because of my parents. My parents had me in their late 30s, and despite me and my father's intense political disagreements and sometimes me and my mom's arguments and our ups and downs of our lives, my mother especially has one of the purest hearts. Like, her intentions have always been good, even when she's gone in and out of things that she then realized she was wrong about, or blah, blah. She's good. She's a good person. And so I got that 1940s Wisconsin farm girl, my mother, with just this brilliant mind and this literary background. She got to stay home and educate me. And so I got a real education. And she taught me how to educate myself and to see what's bullshit and what isn't bullshit. It was known that proximity plus diversity causes war. Now they're saying, you know, diversity is our strength. Diversity is our strength. It's not. America is so geographically big and so wealthy, and our culture was so strong, and it was so inclusive of anyone who wanted to get in and try the meritocracy, you know, like work hard to get something for yourself. We have two oceans protecting us from some old weird shit. Welcome to America. Let's do it, right? But that it still has a breaking point, you know, and the left wants to flood America with no borders. They have a globalist view of the world, and your country can't survive that. And so we were taught before this plan got set into action that proximity plus differences equals war. Like, the Norman invasion was like 20,000 people. We have like, what, 50, 60 million people in America that aren't from America? And we're so big and so wealthy that it's cool. But if we tick down in wealth, and if the flow keeps coming and we don't have people that stand up for our culture, it's over. And that's the whole point of border security. When we see a Mexican, we want to know that they were the ones that the people we elected thought would do well here. And people would say, that's racism. No, it isn't. And just stand up and say, no, it's not racism. It's as if you're having a dinner party and someone invites their Hispanic friend. And you go, is he a cool guy? You're like, yeah. You do the same thing for a white person or a black person or an Asian. Say, are they a good guy? Yeah, good guy. Now compare that to just, are they a good guy? Completely random guy. I have no idea. Let's call him a dreamer and put him right next to you. That's a terrible call. And so when Peterson said that the left knows no limit. They just keep going left. They will never say how many immigrants are enough, but they say the right has a limit, which is Nazism. The far right is not Nazis. It's Stefan Molyneux is the far, far, far right. Someone who wants zero government. Nazis were fascist socialists. They wanted bigger government, more control over the population. Far right is no government. And people try to confuse themselves with the Eric Weinstein four-quadrant thing that I was on board with for months. I thought it was brilliant. It's not four quadrants. That's all bullshit. There's one spectrum, and it's not a horseshoe. That horseshoe is curved around the gravitational force of the state. You take away that, there's one ideological line. Giant government controls everything. There's no individual versus there's no government, total individualism. That's the political spectrum from right and left. You will be lied to, and they'll say, well, communism and fascism are almost identical, which means it's actually a circle. No, the fuck it isn't. That's a lie. And so when Peterson's peddling that, that's half true. The left doesn't have a limit, but the right's limit is not Nazis. And when Malcolm X figured that out, you know, the Republicans' first black senator, I might be wrong on the dates here. Might have been House, might have been Senate. Just overall, what I'm about to say is true, but I might be wrong about a date or something. But the first black Republican was 1880. The first black Democrat in the Senate was like 1993. You know, and Malcolm X called out President Johnson for being a racist, and he said that as long as they have us in a voting block, they can do anything they want from you, and we're just still on the plantation. He was then accidentally shot 40 times by the Nation of Islam, which is an enforcement wing of the Democratic Party, because the KKK was having branding problems at the time. And they did it in public because just like with Kavanaugh, the goal of power is to do it in front of everyone and showing that no one will do anything because it destroys people's spirit. Speaking of spirit, how great's Lindsey Goldengram? And I think John McCain was abusing our sweet, sweet boy, Goldengram. But now he's on fire. I'm obsessed with Goldengram. You know, because these tirades that these women are doing now, they're like, do you not believe I was raped? And Golden Graham just steps in. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. And you're just like, Golden Graham, Golden Graham. Because he's this like mild-mannered guy who's voted out. You know, they'll just vote anywhere McCain said. He's kind of a pussy. He's like what you'd call a cuck-servative. And then after McCain died, Lindsey Golden Graham is now one of my favorite people. And this Kavanaugh appointment is so good for the country. Like, we're in a culture war that I do not want to become a real war. And shame works. And that's why I'm calling out Peterson. He's not on your side. He's a leftist. And words are better than bullets. So that's it. Graham is the man. Because what it's doing is it's giving Republicans something to vote for and not what to vote against. The left is so insane that a 2010 Democrat would now be considered alt-right. Because what people don't understand, it's a never-ending machine. Conservatives will give them what they want, thinking that we'll have peace, and we'll now just be able to have that. We can meet in the middle, centrism. There is no middle. There's no moderate. That's like saying, what's the moderate of rape? Well, you know, it depends on the rape. No. Pick a side. The middle ground in trench warfare is called the no man's land. You immediately die because there isn't a middle ground. So they wanted, you know, abortion, gay marriage, the welfare state, black people to have laws where they get stuff white people don't. Like all that stuff, they got all of it. So what happens then? Do they just go, oh, we're done? No, that would make them conservative. Being done and happy with an existing system makes you right-wing. The left has to keep going. There is no stopping. And so that's why if you're on the left now, you're crazy. You're just a crazy person. And we listened to Jordan Peterson, this liberal from Canada with a frog voice, because he said masculine things and acted masculine in a time of a masculinity vacuum. But clean your room isn't a revelatory statement, and the fact that he's done what he's done now means bail. And this isn't me being a leftist or acting like that or ruining someone. Only leftists would even think that, because I'm not saying I'm going to force you to bail. I'm not saying I'm going to eliminate his ability of speaking. I'm going to protest Jordan Peterson. No, I'm saying my advice to you, young man, is bail. But it's your choice. If you want to stay, go for it. If you want to spend $300 to hear a frog voice say lobsters and Dave Rubin warm up the crowd with his hot takes, go for it. It's just the wrong move. And if anyone knows, it's me. Just think of my history with this stuff. I'm at CAA. When I listen to Peterson speak my truth, I get kicked out of CAA. I climb out of darkness with my newborn baby and wife to a career I'm now proud of, with less money, but that's fine. But I have more connection with people, and I can speak my mind and stay home and play with my kid. And then Peterson signs with CAA, makes his tickets $200 and something, gets a fancy $2,000 vested suit, starts only eating meat, and becomes full of shit. Fuck him.